Okay, so I'm so pleased to have another session, and this time it's a sector that we've not looked at before, the healthcare system. And we've heard stuff about working within the healthcare in the news and, from friends and family. But I mean, who better to hear from what it's like to work for the NHS and work within the healthcare system in the UK than someone who's got decades of experience, but also really interesting experience. So we've got Ibiyemi as our guest speaker today. And the reason why I decided to reach out to her because she has nearly 20 years of experience as a senior clinical practitioner in cancer clinical trials. So it's a very exciting and unique perspective within her field. And I believe that we'll find it very helpful whether you want to pursue a career path within that sector or just as a sort of knowledge to understand. I think it's a very helpful information for all of us, really. So she's actually joining us right from work right now as well. So thank you so much for agreeing to do this, Ibiyemi, and welcome to our show.
Thank you.
Excellent. So I always like to take our guest speakers to really beginning of their journey, because a lot of our listeners are early careers, either recently graduated or they're still in university. So if we had to take you back to your time at university, I noticed you studied healthcare at university, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe you can even earlier than that, what made you study that degree? What did you study? Which university? And then, take us through how did you start your professional life?
All right. Thank you. And well, to begin with, I came from Nigeria. So I had my educational background in Nigeria because I grew up there. So I
Mm-hmm.
had my first degree from one of the universities in Nigeria, and that was in biochemistry. So I studied biochemistry at University of Ado-Ekiti in Nigeria.
Wow.
That's where I lived. My parents lived there, so handy enough for me to go to uni there. And well, one of the projects I did for my final project for the BSc was to look at zinc and lead in healthy population. Are there changes along the line? And so we had to collect blood samples. I collected blood samples. I analyzed from the laboratory. And that actually intrigued me.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt, oh, I think I should go into medical line or pharmaceutical to further my studies. And then prior to that period, I did a 3 months industrial attachment in my third year. And I worked in the laboratory where they analyzed blood samples, urine samples, fecal samples. So I was interested, and that actually helped me when I did my own project to analyze blood samples from people that I collected blood sample from, looking at legs, and especially people that are working manually, like mechanics, people that are carpenters. Do we have the same level of zinc and lead in them versus people that are working in offices? So I did this, and it was great experience for me. Kind of a kind of clinical research. So when I graduated, I thought of what I was going to do again to in order to look at the field. So I was still exploring anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I applied for pharmaceutical chemistry for masters. Unfortunately, I wasn't given admission. So then, well, together in Africa, we always decide mostly together. So
Mm-hmm.
with my parents, then my parents also felt, don't stay, don't look for work now. We prefer you to go in, stay in academics until you find what you wanted to do. So I applied for food science and technology, postgraduate diploma.
Mm-hmm.
So in the same university, I wanted to do my master so that I could keep an eye on openings and things like that. And so I did a 1 year postgraduate diploma in food science and technology, which was still good in combination with my biochemistry, and it's giving me a different way to look at how I can make use of the biochemistry. From there, then I finished and I gained admission for pharmaceutical chemistry, masters in that. So I did the masters 1 year, and then just before I finished, I got married. I had my first child, just around the time I finished. So,
Mhm.
but my project for pharmaceutical chemistry was looking at the rate of metabolism of a particular drug. And we were researching rate of metabolism because we knew some people have slow metabolizers, some people are high metabolizers, and so we decided to do a study on oxidative polymorphism, and that was my project.
Mhm.
I I got Proguanil, which was what we call a Sunday medicine against malaria from company, and I gave it out to healthy volunteers. Collected urine sample in the morning. They take the medicine in the evening. I collected urine sample, so I gave them a big container to urinate in throughout the night. So I wear around. We collect
Mhm.
that in the morning, take samples, keep some in the lab, in the freezer, work on that, and that was my project, just
Wow.
to know the number of people and the rate of metabolism. So that was what I did. And that was kind of spurred me on to think of clinical research. And while I did that, finished looking for work, then I traveled to UK to join
Okay.
my husband in UK. So when I got to UK, I did lots of menial jobs. But unfortunately, I couldn't
When
find
was
work
this?
in sciences.
Okay, so no, I mean, when did you move to UK?
I moved to UK in 2001.
Oh, okay. Wow, a long time ago.
By then, I've had two kids,
Mm.
so I joined my husband. We're living together. I was looking for a job. I couldn't find any job. Then I did lots. I emailed lots of people for voluntary job. Nobody gave me the chance.
Mm.
And so I started doing menial jobs around hospital, clinic, few things around auxiliary work in hospital. And I decided I had to do another master's in
Mhm.
order to bridge the gap between the Nigerian knowledge and UK knowledge. So
Right.
I went for biomedical science degree, University of London Metropolitan University. That's where I graduated from in 2005. And while I was doing this, I was working as a support worker in hospital, one of the hospitals in London.
Mhm.
While the support working is like a band three job in healthcare, but this is different from the normal support work. I was linked or to work with advanced care nurses. So they look after patients that are dying, patients that had heart attack at night. And I was trained specially to catheterize people, patients, catheterize them, take blood samples, do some other advanced clinical stuff. I
Mm.
was trained to do that. And I
Mm.
did that for some years, for like 3 years or so. I finished my MSc. Then along the line, I had the opportunity, I had a good manager, and I explained my situation that, look, I'm looking for work in my degree. And
Mhm.
she helped me in order to look for courses I could register for. She gave me a chance to do courses, and I paid for some courses myself in order to work in clinical research. So I was just building up like a kind of portfolio. I had a big folder. Every time I have my courses, I just file them off. And that was
We
it.
are
Then
working and doing the courses at the same time.
at the same time, yeah, some of them just 1 day course, some of them online. I was just building up my portfolio, adding on to my knowledge.
Yeah.
And I found a job, band six, clinical trial coordinator at one of the hospitals
Mhm.
to look after oncology patients. Totally new to me,
Mhm.
but when I went for the interview, I went along with my big folder and I had interview, fantastic interview. And they look at all the certificates I've
Wow.
collected over the years. They were so impressed and they said, oh, wow, this is so impressive. We give you the job.
How did you
Well,
know which courses to do?
which courses to do? Oh, yeah, because as I said, I attended some conferences. I paid for conferences in clinical
Mm.
research. I searched clinical Institute of Clinical Research up what was needed then, how I can get into the profession. Then I had another colleague also who came from Nigeria, the same as me, interested in that. So whenever she sees any opportunity, she tells me. If I
Mm-hmm.
see any out there, we're just like,
Right.
exploring,
Yeah.
getting information here and there, and that helped both of us. She
Mm-hmm.
also she went into industry, clinical research in industry, while I stay in NHS. So that was the beginning of my career in clinical research and in oncology.
Mm.
And I've had the opportunity to travel to America, to Spain,
Wow.
Italy, many places for site investigators meeting. I opened so many commercial trials with industries, and I've been to America for conferences. My
Mm-hmm.
manager believed in me when the opportunity to go to the ASCO in America came. I just felt I did not need to apply because I only just joined the office. But she came
Mm-hmm.
to me and said, if you have someone who can look after your baby, I'll put your name down. You go with us. I said, wow. And luckily, my husband said, I'll take time off work and look after the baby. You can go. So we went to America for a week for
Wow.
ASCO friends. And that was just the beginning of my career. So from there, I moved 10 years ago to my current job role
Mm-hmm.
as a team leader, still in oncology. Team leader, I look after my team, and I've been successful. It's been a great journey. And one of the highlights of my own professional is being a registered clinical trial practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
We were not able to access so many fellowships, so many awards because we're not registered professional. And that really paid me. I work with some people and we're able to be registered now. So we have our own professional registration with Academy of Healthcare Science. And so I was one of the pilots group. I registered and there we are. I'm one of the CRP engagement lead in South London.
Wow, that's so amazing. You've had such an impressive journey. What does it like for people who are not familiar with your field? In terms of your day-to-day job, what do you do now? What does being a team leader in oncology means if you had to like break it down?
Yes. So I start with my profession as a clinical trial practitioner.
Yeah.
Apart from being the senior clinical just a clinical trial practitioner, some will call it clinical trials coordinator. In some places, they call it clinical trials coordinator. Some will call it's like equivalent of a research nurse, but we are not nurses.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do in generally day to day, what we do is we work in hospitals, work with doctors that are interested in opening new trials. So the doctors are called the local doctors. They are called the principal investigators. We call them PIs. So they work with chief investigator, commercial studies, which are industry, or just a general study that's been sponsored by another academic unit. And when they open the study here, we work with them to open the study so that the patient can have access to the study. Some of these studies are about treatments for oncology patients, which could be chemotherapy, surgery, radiotherapy. So we introduce a trial to them. We give them information about the trial. The
Mm-hmm.
doctors will discuss with them about the standard treatment that is available and give them opportunity to be part of the trial as well. So we give them the information and they look at this. They come back after some time to make decision to say, well, I don't want to do the trial. I want standard treatment. That
Mm-hmm.
is it. And we hands off. We put their name as we screen them. But some will come back to say, I want to be part of the trial. And then we enroll them. We screen them. So we have to screen them, make sure they are eligible for the trial. So they do blood tests. We look at their scans. If the scan is out of date, we organize a new scan. So we are like in the middle of the patients and the doctors and the commercial studies,
Mm-hmm.
wherever outside there, We are in the middle where everyone they work with us, they get information from us, we pass information around. So for us, we are the center.
Wow, that's a very interesting and fulfilling job, because you bring so many pieces together towards like a very big cause. It's really
Yes.
interesting because I actually studied chemical engineering at university, and I worked in the pharmaceutical sector as well for 1 year. But
All right.
I never knew that there is potential to work. I guess I kind of knew, but it didn't like present me like maybe I can work in clinical trials. It sounds really interesting, and it sounds like a bit of project management as well, because you have to deal with different people, different stakeholders. How did
Yes.
you learn about this career path? Because I know you did some like blood samplings and things like that,
Yeah.
but it doesn't seem like directly linked to oncology clinical trials, does it?
No. So yeah, so when I did those ones in Nigeria, my first degree and my master's in Nigeria, there's the one I did for my master's. Actually, there was a paper produced from that. So we published an article.
Mm-hmm.
My supervisor presented that at the conference, and that was one thing I held on to say, yes, I know about clinical research. I only wanted to do more. I wanted to find out. Luckily, the job that came out was in oncology. I didn't know anything about cancer, or
Mm-hmm.
apart from what I learned from my biomedical science degree here at London Metropolitan University. I did a little bit of that. But when I saw this job opportunity, I said, well, I've never done cancer before, but I would do it. I'm, I am not challenged by anything. I had to go and buy some textbooks to learn about cancer, to do some more investigation of my own. Then we have training. Early career, you have trainings that you work with your manager to train you up on how to present information about randomized, like it's not all the trials that are straightforward, only one treatment. Some of them, they have about 3 different arms that the
Mm-hmm.
patient will be randomized. So how do we present the information? How do we speak to patients, oncology patients, especially when you have patients that are stage 4 that are been given like a prognosis of death and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
we have to look at how we present information to them. How do we get them on the trial? And some trials are just observational trials that we don't give medicine. We just collect information about them, or we collect saliva, or we collect urine sample. Some of them we collect the fecal sample. We ask them to do fecal sample, take it at home, bring it to the clinic. We take it, label it, take it to the lab. And
Mm-hmm.
so those are the things we do. And so it's just I found myself there. I learned. I just kind of learning on the job. And I kept on learning more and more and more and more.
Wow.
So that's it, just about it.
Yeah, you were proactive and you paid attention to different opportunities
Yeah.
by the sound of it. What's so I'm guessing the clinical trials you're doing now, it's for introducing new medicines or new treatments for cancer patients, right? So
Yes.
um, in terms of like working with patients, you mentioned some patients have the option of continuing with clinical trials, and then some of them go back to traditional treatment methods.
Yeah.
Um, I guess maybe for the scientist people who are listening, or people who have some sort of pharmaceutical background, what would make a patient decide to continue with a clinical trial as opposed to um, like opting out for like traditional treatments?
Yes. For each trial that's about treatment, some of them they take the information home. We
Hmm.
give them the chance to discuss this even with their GP and their families, because sometimes some of these trials could be very intensive that they will need the support of their family members. If they don't have support, it may be difficult for them to participate. For someone who has to travel to another hospital for radiotherapy every day, 5 days of the week,
Wow.
who is not that mobile, maybe he's on a wheelchair, it's going to be difficult without having someone, a support. So if there's no support, they can come back to say, no, thank you, I want to have standard treatment. Some of them will look at the process because when we give them information, it tells them a lot about the involvement, the expectations. And
Mm-hmm.
some of them do dialogue with us. When we call them to know if they have any question, or sometimes they have questions, they call us to say, I have a question about this. How do we do this? Most of the time, some of them don't ask. If they don't ask us questions, they won't find out that how we can also support them in being part of the trial. So they'll just say, no, I don't want to. Occasionally, if they say, I don't want to, and we probe them further, and we know maybe they have difficulties in the coming and going and other things, we can just say, okay, maybe you can do it this way. Maybe we can post information to you, or maybe you can go to your GP for the blood test instead of coming to the hospital. So they prefer to go to GP, do blood tests, and be part of the trial than to come to the hospital. They have to look at, there's so many things they have to weigh, and their own personal preferences and values. They have to put those things in the plan when they are making the decision. Is a big one.
So it's more, would you say it's more of a pragmatic issue of seeing if they can manage it with their lifestyle, or is there also an element of like effectiveness, maybe uncertainty?
Not all of them are with the element of uncertainty, because sometimes we do have treatments
Mm,
that are standard, and they just vary some of the treatments. Okay, they have treatment like they have radiotherapy that they give once a week, once a day for 4 weeks. But some of them, maybe they give in smaller doses, and which means it's going to be longer. And
mm-hmm.
so it's not only about the effectiveness. Sometimes when there is like a placebo, like a dummy treatment, then they may think, I don't know what I'm going to get. So in that case, well, they can say, yeah, I don't want to be a guinea pig. I just want to have my normal treatment and do away with it. Sometimes it has to do with a long-term follow-up. Some of the studies will follow them up for like 15 years.
Wow. Okay.
Some of them will feel overwhelmed by that to say, no, I don't think I want to be followed up to that extent. But
Yeah.
one thing is, we always give them the information that they are okay. It's okay if they want to stop at any point in time.
Mm-hmm.
It
Okay.
doesn't, it wouldn't affect their standard treatment or anything else. So their medical care and attention will still revert to normal under the standard care. So there's quite a lot of factors that work together when you
Yeah.
make a decision.
Wow. It sounds like there's so many different aspects involved, and like from your qualification and training, and I'm guessing most people who go into this type of roles, they go from like sciencey, like pharmaceutical pharmacology background into this, but it sounds like you need to have so many other skills to be able to succeed in this type of roles, right? Because you need to have the data analysis, maybe talking to patients, managing teams, expectations. What would you say like are some of the key skill sets that you've had to develop over the years to help you become successful in your role?
One important skill is effective communication,
Mm,
because it's necessary. Because when we speak to the patient, we have to break it down into very simple language, which
yeah.
they will understand. Then, when you're talking to the doctors, you go a bit higher, you go technical, and when you are speaking to other people, depending on the level of stakeholders that we're involved in, we have to be flexible in our communication skills. So you use whatever skill will apply at each during each situation. We
Mm,
do what we call we work with the doctors. We attend their multidisciplinary team meetings whereby they discuss patient and the treatment. And there, at that point in time, we have to interrupt them to say, this patient is eligible for this particular study. So you need to know the
mhm.
studies that you have available in order to let the doctors know. Some of them, sometimes the doctors will say, okay, let's consider the patient. But then it doesn't mean that is it. Then we give the patient. Sometimes we still have to screen again. But if the patient fits the main criteria, then we say yes. So the level of discussion is also different at that point in time. So all the skills will be time management, and ability to prioritize is also important, because you
Yeah.
can be planning to see a patient, to have a meeting with a doctor, and then they phone you to say your patient is in A&E. Then that has to be reported. So those are the things: prioritizing skills, time management skills,
Mm.
critical judgment skills. One needs that. Analytical skills, because you have to look at the figures. We look at every month, we look at the number of patients we recruited. Every year we'll do a breakdown. We have to submit the numbers that we recruited, and we're able to analyze every time we review our workload to see, okay, what are we doing? Are we doing well with this? Do we need to change the way we approach the patient, or we're not doing well? How do we do this? Do we need to speak to other places that they're doing well? So quite lots of skills coming together, a keen eye for details,
Mm-hmm.
accuracy. These are all very important.
Well,
Ability to report, ability to pick up data and know when things are wrong, and to be able to escalate to the right person. And then one needs to know your own limitation when you are working. You need to know your limitation. This I can do, this I cannot do it. Who can deal with this? Then you escalate. But ability to collaborate as well. You can collaborate with other people. Networking is necessary, is important, because we go around hospitals, different departments are involved in what we are doing. We have to be able to explain to them what we are doing. Quite
mhm.
lots of skills, sound judgments, all these they are necessary
Yeah,
in order to be successful.
definitely. And I think that's maybe one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of university students make, especially the ones who are like in more technical or sciencey degrees. They focus too much on the course, and they don't spend time to develop these soft skills. So when they start applying for jobs, especially if they don't have experience, they always face like a lot of struggle, because they don't think that to work in healthcare or to work with clinical trials, you need to have good communication skills or teamwork, in collaboration, all that. So I guess if someone who is an entry level grad who wants to work in clinical trials and they don't have any experience, what do you think they could do whilst they're at university or they've just recently graduated, to bridge the gap between what they study and what they need to enter this field?
What I would say for such people would be, make use of that time
Mm-hmm.
to understand what they want to do, the skills that are necessary for them. It will be a kind of practice run of where they want to be in future. So it's necessary for them to be ready. Just like I was getting myself ready, looking for courses, building up my own portfolio, personal portfolio, which has helped me. The things I picked up while I was working in a low position as a band 3 support worker, the skills I picked up there, I was able to use them
Mm-hmm.
when I became a CTC from band 3 to band 6.
What
So,
city stands for again, sorry?
which is clinical trial coordinator. So
Okay.
that was my first role in clinical research.
Mm,
Because I could do ECG, I could do flow rates for men with prostate issues, I could do blood pressure, all these things. I needed them. So I did not have to look for a nurse to help me to do all these things. So
mm,
I could do them myself. And I knew how to read the results. If necessary, pass it on to the doctor. Say this is necessary. The blood, the anemia, this patient is anemic. We need the blood level to be this before we start treatment. So I was able to, all these things I've learned over the years help me. So they need to look at what they can do, keep their eye out, be inquisitive, and they should be able to, you know, hardworking, open to new ideas, because you never know what can happen. Because
Yeah.
when I started with in oncology, I was given a chance to open a commercial study. I could have said no. My manager said, look, if it's not going to be okay for you, just say no. We'll reject it. We won't do it. And I look at it. I said, give me 2-3 days to have a proper read. And I felt it's challenging, especially when I was just starting. But I picked it up and I said, let's try it. Let's do it. Yes, we opened that study. We only recruited one patient, but that was the learning curve for me because it changed my practice. Quite a lot of things I learned the hard way from there. And the next one I opened, I recruited a lot, and that opened the way for many more commercial studies for myself, for my team, and the whole network then. So many that I opened, and I was successful in that.
Yeah.
So it's just being able to just be open to challenges.
Yeah, it
And
sounds like
yeah,
it's been something that's been throughout your whole life, always looking for new opportunities to stretch yourself, get new qualifications, build an impressive
yeah,
portfolio, which has gotten you here.
yeah,
Which is kind of bringing me to my next point in terms of like a career path. Like I mentioned earlier, when you're at university, you might not know what the typical career journey would look like for someone who works in this field. So you mentioned CTC is clinical trial coordinator, usually is
yeah.
like level first entry level. And what if you had to like plot the career path for someone who is looking at working in clinical trials as a potential route, what would that career path would look like?
Yes, for people, yeah, it will be a lot of people. They call them a self starter. Like myself, I was a self starter because my first role was a clinical trial coordinator job. Some people will start as a data manager.
Okay.
Some people will start as a laboratory manager or laboratory assistant. So it all depends on where people are coming from. But
Mhm.
the main thing is to start. Nowadays, people start with band 5 research officer or research assistant. From there, then they move on to clinical trial coordinator or clinical trial practitioner. From there, they can become a senior practitioner.
Mhm.
And moving on, they can become a project manager in other places if they leave NHS. But with the NHS, you are able to become like a research delivery manager or deputy director. The sky is the limit. I
Wow.
have had someone with same experience, same background, who is now a director of research in a different hospital.
Wow. Okay. So you can go up the leadership path to leading the whole clinical trials.
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
And
amazing.
there are so many other areas. There are areas regulatory
Mm.
where they give approvals for treatment for the trials to open. And some people can go that route. Some people can go the route of research and development, ethics,
Mhm.
science. So different areas to go into. But the main thing is to start from somewhere as a data manager, as a research assistant, research support officer. There are different types of terminologies around all these. But
Mhm.
that is just a starting point. And in NHS, mostly starts with band 5.
Band.
Some people are taking on as clinical trial administrator,
Mhm.
band 4. Some are data managers, band 5, and then they progress along the route. Now, in the next few months, there is going to be like an apprenticeship scheme
Okay.
for people without degree, and they can go through that and become a clinical trial practitioner
How
for
long
those who
is
are
the
without degree. I don't know much about that scheme, but
Mm.
that's just in planning. I was told probably in the next 3-4 months they will be ready to share the
Wow. Okay.
scheme with us. Yeah.
That's really helpful. Like if someone knows that this path is right for them, I think apprenticeship is really useful because you just get the real life experience in practice from the
Yeah.
beginning. In terms of like your, because one of the things we always like to talk about is um, people, especially millennials and younger people now, they're, to be honest, everyone, but especially Gen Zs as well, think about their career fulfillment. Like, am I going to enjoy this? And obviously, you don't know until you try, right? It's very hard to know before you're in that role. So maybe you can share some of the positive moments for you that that made you feel like, okay, I'm really pleased that I'm doing this job. And also maybe the
Mm,
other side, because one of the reasons I like to
mm,
talk to people who are actually doing the job itself is so I can hear the unfiltered truth from someone who's doing that role, day to day. Whereas when you ask a recruiter, they always sugarcoat it because obviously they want to hire you for that role. But yeah, like if maybe first we can start with the negative so we can so we can finish on a high note. But so what are some of the daily struggles that someone should be aware of if they want to pursue this career path?
yes. First of all, it's highly demanding job,
Okay.
and it requires you to think on your feet.
Mm,
You need to make decisions quickly, and so for some people, it's difficult for them. If it's like they push them to the corner to say, "Give me a decision." Well, as well as being a changing landscapes, it changes quickly.
mm-hmm.
You could come to work with your own plan of the day, and within 10 minutes of getting to work, everything will change for the day. You would definitely move away from your plan of the day.
Wow.
So many things that can happen, and that will change your whole day for you, the dynamics of the day. So no 2 days are the same. They are different.
So do you have
So
any examples of like a time where you came to work expecting the date was going to go a certain way and then something?
yes, I'll tell you one. I came to work. I don't work on Mondays. I came on a Tuesday morning
Yeah.
thinking of, okay, let me plan for my clinic on the day and for the following day. And then my colleague told me that yesterday, when you were away, one of the doctors spoke to a patient and asked us to come and get the patient to sign consent form. And the patient signed consent form and they collected blood sample and they kept the blood sample. It's just even in our fridge, local fridge. And they said, okay, so you have to process this blood sample this morning. You have to register the patient and let the doctor know the treatment this patient is going to have when you randomize. I said, okay, hold on, hold on. We are definitely not doing this study. The study had been put on hold for like 5 months before then.
Wow.
And this doctor didn't know, he did not realize that it's been put on hold because he went for a road show where they talk about the new things coming up. But he didn't realize that we did not have authority to continue it. So he just used a wrong form. And
Wow.
the treatment is already told the patient that it will happen, definitely was not being offered then. So the blood test, we had to it was a wrong, it didn't even get the right form for the
Wow.
blood test because they have to sign a different form for that particular study. So we didn't have a form. So I couldn't retrospectively go back and collect signature for the patient. So we won't be able to use that. It took me a while. I had to speak to different people and ask someone, the director, to speak to the doctor to say that's not going to be possible because he didn't want to listen to me. And
Wow.
so I spent like the whole day trying to solve out this issue. Eventually, we destroyed the blood sample,
Mm.
quite a lot of things. So totally a change of mind.
Yeah, and I bet it's very like telling the patients as well. That must have been very hard.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. It was hard, but that's
wow.
just that's how things are. So things
Yeah.
change, and we do have every workflows that we sometimes find it difficult to manage, especially when you have like a colleague or team member going off sick. So if
Mm.
someone is off sick, we have to chip in. share the work among ourselves, or someone is traveling for like 2, 3 weeks, we all have to take control of that while
Mm.
the person is. So we have to know, everyone in my team, we know each other's work. Even if it's just vaguely, but you just know, and they all know my own work too. So if I'm not there, they can work confidently without having to disturb me on my days off. So that's just the downsides of the work.
Yeah, it does sound really demanding. I did some work experience in hospitals before, and it was just too manic. It's like sometimes it feels like you're in the middle of a war.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, maybe now some um good memories or something that you like about your job, either whether it's day to day or if it's some certain moments where it makes you feel like, okay, it's worth it what I'm doing, or I'm enjoying. Is there anything in particular, or maybe it could be something trivial every day to day as well that you enjoy?
Yeah, well, I do enjoy how patients doing well on the treatments that's been given, and then they're discharged. You see them for 3, 4 years after treatment has ended, and they're still doing well.
Hmm.
That gives me satisfaction.
Wow.
That gives me good satisfaction. And also, at the end of the day, when we finish these studies, they publish some of them, and we see them in print. We see the results in print.
Hmm.
And therefore, one is able to say, yes, I participated in this. Just like 2 weeks ago, there was one on LinkedIn. One of the doctors wrote from ICR that this is a study they did. And I could put my hand up to say, yes, I recruited a patient into this study as well. So
Wow.
it's fulfilling when you see results
Yeah.
being shared widely. So the dissemination of the results to show that, yeah, this works and that didn't work.
Hmm.
Plus the fact that you physically see your patient doing well, it's a good thing.
You're literally saving, like changing and saving people's lives. So
Yes.
that with what's the saying? They say with great struggle comes great rewards as well. So
Yes.
yeah, thank you so much. Is there any last words or last piece of advice you have for people who want to pursue a career, or anything else that maybe we didn't touch on that you would like to share?
Well, I would just like to say that if you are passionate about something, go for it.
Mm.
Don't think it's a challenge. I always count barriers as opportunities for growth. Don't miss any opportunity that comes your way. Look at it, pursue it. No knowledge is lost. If there's an opportunity to be part of something, raise up your hand, offer to be part of it. Worst case scenario, you may be rejected to say, no, sorry, you can't be part of this. But it's necessary to put just put yourself out and see what will come out of that. Have a mentor. It's necessary to have a mentor, and be ready to inspire others as you are being inspired by your mentor. Inspire others, pass on the knowledge. Recently, is the use of internet has helped a lot of us in this job. And I see myself, years ago, I was able to enroll into what they call NIHR Advanced Leadership Scheme.
Mm.
So some of us, we applied, and they train us for a whole year of training. And it is just to make us digital leaders in clinical research because of the changing landscape. So I was happy I was one of the last set of people to be trained on that. We had a nice celebration afterwards. I've never done out, I didn't know how to do video, I didn't know how to do digital anything. But then that gave me lots of courage to work on digital projects, initiatives. I had local projects initiative, which I did within my local hospital. Plus, our celebration of the event we all had videos and different areas of our work, which we put together. And I did all the putting together. I created it into a video with Powtoon. I use it. I use Adobe Spark. I use all these digital platforms to create videos, create flyers, nice work. So honestly, I am glad I was able to be part of that. I applied for the first set. I was not successful. Second year, I applied again and I was successful and I really enjoyed it. And that's helped me. It's one of the things I key into. I use lots of informatics now with my clinical research. So it's not only just in research, you have to look at ways of digitizing what you're doing, bringing it home, and being excited about the job, no matter what it brings. Just be excited
Yeah.
because there's always something to gain at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, that's definitely very helpful. It sounds like your journey has been a journey of being open to new opportunities, continuously challenging yourself, not being scared of new territory. I mean, moving from Nigeria to UK, it's a big change by itself, and having to adapt and getting new qualifications, building your portfolio. And that's why you're so successful today. So it's been really great to hear about your journey and also learn about the area you work in within clinical trials. I'm sure people who are listening would be very, I mean, I'm definitely intrigued as well. I didn't know much about clinical trials before I spoke to you, but it sounds like
Okay.
it's actually a very dynamic role to work in. It's not just one thing. You're dealing with stakeholder management, communication, teamwork, all that. So no, definitely a very interesting field and a very fulfilling role. So thank you, well, firstly for the work you're doing day to day, changing people's lives, and
Thank
secondly for
you.
coming to our show and sharing your experience and journey with us in such a honest way and open way. It's been very, very useful to learn. Thank you so much for your time, Ibiyemi.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
I wish good luck to everyone out there.
Cheers. Thank you.